following speaker share from Ken was recorded on October 3rd, 2024.
Well, good evening, everybody, and hello, or good morning if you're on the other side of the world. It is a pleasure to be back here, and it's a pleasure to see some really familiar faces. Tonight, my presentation is going to be a little bit different. Tonight, I want to do a little bit of a continuation of a topic that I started about a month and a half ago. We talked about intimacy. And even though this is part two, what I'm going to be talking about tonight is completely different. So if you missed the first part, there's nothing to catch up on. These two things, intimacy and life balance, I have a way of diagramming them and putting them together on a piece of paper. And if you missed the first part and you want to know how to do the diagram, what I'm going to do is I can put a link to a website in the chat later, and you can access a lot of information there. If you have any questions about life realms and life balance and you'd like me to answer them, you can do it through the website. So with that said, my life is a little bit disheveled right now, even though I'm here to talk about life balance. My life is a little disheveled, but I understand why, and I understand that it's recalibrating itself, if that makes sense. I just got back from a 2-week vacation. The yard is out of control. The dog wants to be walked. There's a lot of things that need to be done, laundry. So I'm trying to manage all that stuff. And as I balance my pie, my realms really clearly in that I push my vacation to the last minute, and then I come home and the next day I go back to work. So I'm trying to put everything back together. And one of the things on my to-do list that I needed to do when I got back to work, and I had the time to do it yesterday, was I work in healthcare, and it's required for me to go in and get my flu shot and my COVID shot, my vaccines. So if my head's a little wonky today, or I repeat myself, it's because I'm not at 100%. But I feel really accomplished that I had the time and was able to do this, so I don't have this hanging over my head. I think that in recovery, whatever recovery you're in, whether it be substance abuse, codependency, inner child work, trauma, the most important rules of recovery, 3 most important rules are structure, structure, structure. So talking about balance today is an important thing about maintaining your life balance. And the other thing about maintaining life balance is we're always going through a transition. So if you can kind of keep this in your back of your mind when I talk about this, that life usually isn't stable. There are things that kind of can rock our boat. And unfortunately, if any of you are living in the path of the recent hurricane, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Things can be stable 1 week, and then the next week, you've lost your house. So how do we maintain some semblance of balance when things that are beyond our control and we're powerless over, when those things happen to us? So I'd like you to visualize your life like a pie. If I were to give everybody a pie, and I know there's some people that prefer cake over pie, but tonight we're going to talk about pie. And everybody has one whole pie. One whole pie is 100%. And some people like me who like to do a lot of stuff, it might look like I have a pie and a half or a pie and 3/4, but everything has to fit into that one pie. We all have 24 hours in a day, and nobody has more than that. So our lives are very stagnant that way. And some of us have very limited balance on our life. And even though our balance might look limited, like we might only have half a pie, we still have a pie. And I wish I had a dry erase board in back of me because I could do all this stuff. And usually when I teach this in person. In fact, when I go into work tomorrow night, this is exactly the same thing that I'm going to be teaching in person in a classroom with a dry erase board in back of me. So my brain works a little bit better when I'm clicking with the dry erase board. But I want you to think of your life like a pie. And the different slices in your life are the different realms that you swim through from day to day or week to week. And when I talk about these realms, examples would be like where you live. That is one realm. And you have people that are within that realm. So if you live with other people, they are in that home slice. Your neighbors, your mailman, anything that has to do with your home is in that slice. If you have a job, and many of us have 40-hour-a-week jobs, that's a huge slice. 40 hours kind of looks like a third of your pie. And everybody that we interact with in our job fits into that slice. I think if you're here tonight, that means that you have a recovery slice. Some people have sub-slices within their slice. So some of you might have, in addition to ACA, you might have AA, you might have SLA, you might have DA, you might have CODA, you might have Al-Anon. I know a lot of people that are multiple winners. So you can look at your recovery slice as one slice with different nuances to it. So recovery slice, work slice, home slice. If any of you volunteer anywhere, if you go to church, if you belong to any type of activities. I noticed a profile picture with a kayak. I have a big kayak slice in my life, and I'm getting ready to go camping with my kayak people next month. That's on the horizon. All these things are a part of who we are, and sometimes we either neglect to take care of our slices, or sometimes our slices get overwhelming and they start to infect all the other slices. I'm sure if you are dealing with the hurricane right now, your home, your car, whatever that you're dealing with is like paramount, and you're not maybe thinking about other things right now because you're just focusing on that. But hopefully you can look forward to know that in time, things will recalibrate itself. And I know for me, it's important when I go through something like that, that if I know there's an end date to it, that this is going to be something that's going to last a short period of time, I'm a lot more likely to get through it. I think COVID is a really good example. That's something that hit everybody. And we didn't all deal with that transition the same way. And some people didn't deal with it very well at all. The way it hit me the hardest was I went into work one day and we were told that we could have no more than 25 people in our group room. And I kind of shrugged my shoulders because it had been a long time since we'd had 25 people in the group room. So no worries. About 3-4 days later, I went into work and we were told we had to limit the size of the groups to 12 people. A little more concerning. The next day I came into work and the governor of California had shut the state down. Our doors were closed. We were told, call people. Now, I'm a therapist. I'm used to sitting in an office with people. I'm used to being close enough to people that I can see how their breathing is. I can see the moisture in their eyes or the dilation of their pupils. I like that interactive human contact with people. And all of a sudden I was told, pick up the phone and call people. And in my mind, with a virus that takes like 2 weeks to run its course, I thought we're going to be closed for 2 weeks. We're going to squash the virus in 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, we're going to open up and it's not going to be that big a deal. I'm kind of in my office, watching videos on my phone because there really wasn't much to do. And then by about between the second and third week, I started to realize that this was not something that was going to go away anytime soon. And we unfortunately hadn't had the technology at work yet to do virtual calls and virtual therapy. I found myself getting depressed. Also, part of my structure is going to the gym 3 times a week. Guess what? The gym's closed. I couldn't do that anymore. Meetings, all of a sudden, those closed. So I found myself feeling very, very isolated. The saving graces for me that helped me get through this time of transition were replacing some of my realms. If I couldn't go to the gym, I was still going to try to do something to be healthy, and I picked up running. My goal was to run a 10K by the time the pandemic was over. And I started running 1 mile to 2 miles a day. So I was able to take care of some of my need and some of my structure through that. I was still able to ride my bicycle to work twice a week. And I worked with a lot of people that worked from home, and some of them lived in studio apartments and they were just totally boxed in. I was lucky. I didn't feel like I ever had that sense of claustrophobia because I was still able to get out and ride my bicycle. And the other thing that I do that I mentioned is my kayaking. And that was my saving grace with the social element, because I could get together with my friends. We could get together outside and we could go kayaking, because that is the perfect sport to social distance, because if you get too close to somebody when you're kayaking, you get whacked in the head with a paddle. It worked out great. And I really feel that I was able to still maintain a lot of my structure by just rebalancing and recoordinating my realms to fine tune them. And I told myself every day, I said, we are one day closer to this thing getting over. Had no idea when I was going to get over at that point. It wasn't 2 weeks. Had no idea when, but I knew we were one day closer each day. And this is why I like to teach this, because we're always in transition. And when I used to work in a drug treatment program, I had people in the program that they lived there for a year to 18 months. Most of them came off the streets or out of prison. They didn't know what balance was. All they knew was chaos. And if you know laundry list trait number 8, we are addicted to excitement, chaos, drama, all of that. There's no structure in your pie when that's what your life centers around. So we really worked hard on teaching those clients about life balance. And whenever any of them would relapse, I would have them on a dry erase board draw what their pie looked like the day they relapsed. It was always very evident in hindsight which part of their pie was creating stress and throwing them out of balance and putting them into crisis, where they went and they reverted back to the coping tools that they knew. So this works as well with people in recovery for trauma and inner child work. When we're off balance, sometimes we go into crisis mode because, let's face it, we weren't taught the coping tools to manage a lot of life when we were a child, or the coping tools we were taught are not practical or functional. If we can learn to maintain the balance in our life, then hopefully we can keep our tools to where we can use them and don't ever have to be in crisis any longer. So let me talk a little bit about the benefits of the slices. There's a reason why we develop our lives this way. First of all, we're social creatures. Okay. Society is interacting with other people. And whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, we still have some level of contact or interaction with other people. We need that, and we need some realms in our life that provide that social interaction. Some realms fulfill a need for spirituality. They help us connect with the world around us. They help us connect with our higher power. Some realms are recreational, where we are doing something that is getting us outside, getting us to exercise, getting our heart to beat faster, getting our lungs to fill with oxygen, and to put that oxygen in our bloodstream and do something good for ourselves. And sometimes there's a combination of all these things. If you belong to a church group and your church group goes on a hike, that's something that's social, that's something that's spiritual, and that's something that's recreational. So these are all things that kind of come in together to kind of meet the needs that we have. And when I talk about this stuff too, you might think in the back of your mind, did you have any of these when you were a kid, or were you brought up in oppression where your life wasn't balanced and you didn't have all this? Because it's really hard if you didn't have it to try to create it when you get older. Other benefits of realms are vocation, education. So either studying for a career or getting a career, something that's going to create money to put food on the table, something for subsistence to keep us going. Some people have a realm that's medical. If you have any kind of medical concerns or problems and you go to a clinic on a regular basis, that opens a whole other area in your life. Some people struggle with legal problems and they have that realm, unfortunately. And then the last one is kind of personal time, a time for you to connect with yourself. Now, that can be a slice in your pie all on its own. That's what I consider your time in the morning to read your emails, have your cup of coffee, go outside and stare at the sun, whatever it is that you do to kind of ground yourself in the morning. If you are an extrovert, you don't need as much personal time to connect with yourself as do people that are introverts. Introverts tend to spend more time doing that. And I've worked with people who have accused others of isolating, and they didn't understand that what they were doing wasn't isolating. They were recharging their batteries. It's important to know who you are, because if you are an introvert, don't try to push yourself to be an extrovert, because that goes against the grain and you're only going to kind of stress yourself out more. And if you're an introvert, allow yourself to have the downtime to recharge and regroup. Some people are kind of in between. I kind of feel like I'm that way. There's some times when I just love being around people, and then there's other times when it's just like I just want to be by myself. And there's actually a fourth type of personality that they've come up with. And this is somebody who does not communicate very well in person with other people, and they create their whole life through virtual means. And these people are called Textroverts. This is something that might be another trap you might fall into, and not being connected with other people if you do everything virtually. And unfortunately, for a while, that's how the world was set up. And I think we kind of got a little sidetracked with that. So those are the benefits of the realms. I kind of divide my realms into two types. I have my have tos and my want tos. Doing stuff around the house, doing the gardening work, some of the gardening work, like what I was doing today, I was pruning back a tree that had blossomed and had all these seed pods, and I'm cutting all the seed pods off of it. To me, that's kind of therapeutic. That's a want to. That's something that I really look forward to doing. This weekend, I have hedges, and I'm going to need to climb on ladders and get on the roof with my hedger and try to work at leveling everything and cutting everything back. To me, that's more of a have to. Folding my laundry and putting my laundry away, that's a have to. The key here is to make sure that in our life, we have more want tos, things that we want to do, than things that we feel like we have to do. And this is where I feel I've always been really fortunate with my job, because when I hear other people complaining about it being Monday and they have to go back to work, I kind of look forward to going back to work, because the people that I see on Monday are really energetic people and I really enjoy working with them. So to me, work is a want to. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, things changed and work got a little bit stressful. And for a while, I found myself looking at work as a have to. And when I had the opportunity, I was able to cut back to 32 hours a week. That's what I'm working now, 32 hours a week. And I think that was, it was a cut financially and economically for me, but I think my mental health is worth it, because by cutting back on the hours, that made this have to turn back into a want to. So to me, it was worth the cost of that. So I challenge you to look at the different areas of your life, and if you find that you have more things in your life that are things you have to do and you dread doing than the things that you want to, because that's when we have to create new realms and put new balance in our life. If you have any type of stress at home, and that stress at home is keeping you up at night and you're not getting sleep, and then you're going into work and you're not able to perform at work, then what's happening is your home slice is getting somewhat toxic and it's overspilling into another slice. So this is kind of the whole thing about trying to keep everything in balance, is to understand what each of the areas are. And if one of the areas does get stressful, to be able to stop and ask yourself kind of like, what's going on here? Do I have power over what's happening? I'm a big fan of the Serenity Prayer and the ACA Serenity Prayer. I say it all day long, because sometimes I just need to accept that I don't have power and control over this, and I just have to ride this through. And by doing that, it helps that one realm get manageable so that it doesn't cause so much stress that it knocks everything else out. I moved a few years ago, and when I moved, I got very much into fixing my house up. And I was like knocking out walls and having to re-drywall and insulate. I asked some friends to come over and help me, but for the most part, I was doing this on my own. And after about 5 weeks or so of doing this, my kayak friends started calling me and started saying, "Hey, we never see you anymore. Where are you? What's going on?" And I realized I started like working on my house alcoholically. I lost track of all the other balance in my life. And yeah, it was important to get this stuff done at the house, but I didn't have to do it at the same level that I was doing it. I was pushing myself way too hard. And I realized in the process, my friends were moving on, because their lives are all stagnant and doing other things. And all I'm doing is nailing up drywall and sanding. That was a really big wake-up call for me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really have worked really hard on trying to keep the balance going in my life, even in times when things aren't going well, because I need the want tos to balance everything out. Self-esteem is important too. I forget which laundry list trait it is. We're very hard on ourselves. We're very critical. I think it's important to realize that we might not need to be critical about ourselves in every single realm in our life. You might be like an amazing person at your job, but socially, when it comes to other things, you might not feel that competent. And I think it's important to realize that there are a lot of successes that we have that we don't celebrate, that we need to look at the realms that we're the strongest in to celebrate that and remember that that's also who we are, and not just look at ourselves as one little thing. A lot of people that I know see me as a bicyclist, and that's really kind of all they see me as. I mean, they can see me however they want to see me. But I remind myself that there's a lot more to me than just being a bicyclist. It is probably, a huge part of my identity, and it's because of the organizations I belong to that have to do with bicycling. I probably do have fairly large slices with that, but it's still not all of who I am. And I think it's important to look at just how our self-esteem relates as a whole, and not just focusing on one area of our life that we don't feel good about ourselves on and letting that pollute everything else and how we feel about ourselves, and disregard the gains and successes that we have. There are 3 types of realms that I call dark realms. These are slices of our pie that are actually intimacy killers. And these are also recovery killers. The first slice is addiction. If you spend a lot of time, hanging out in the bar, if that's starting to pollute your work life, your family life, if it's losing trust, respect, all those intimacy factors that we talked about a few weeks ago, that's not a good slice to have. And I mentioned, working on my house alcoholically. So addiction doesn't necessarily have to be just drugs or alcohol. There's a lot of other things that we become addicted to. Some people are workaholics and they become addicted to their job, and they take on overtime every single chance that they can get. Like I said, I was working on my house alcoholically. All of these things are things that throw everything else out of balance. The next dark realm is an empty slice. So if you are dealing with a change in culture, and because I work in the substance abuse field, that's the example I always give, is if you have a slice of your pie that's maybe 15%, 20% of your pie is the time and effort and energy that you spent in engaging in that habit, and you come into recovery, you have this 20% slice of your life that you take out and you get rid of. And then let's say you start going to AA and you add an AA slice, but that AA slice is maybe only once a week or twice a week. So that might only be 5%. And you might go into treatment, which might be 5% more. So you've got 10. But you haven't filled that entire slice up yet. So you have this empty gap. And I call that emptiness, I call that boredom. And this is when we get into trouble, because when we don't keep ourselves focused on keeping ourselves in balance and doing the things that we need to and should do, we go back to old behaviors, old patterns, old dysfunctional ways of thinking. Think of it as like a bicycle needs to be in motion to keep on going. And as soon as you stop that motion, you fall over. I know that's how I am with boredom. If I have too much time on my hands, I fall into depression. I have to keep myself going all the time. And this is why some people think I'm manic, because I always have something planned, always have something to do. And no, I am not manic. I am just preventing myself from getting bored and then becoming depressed as a result of that. That's why I have like the next 4 or 5 vacations already stacked up, knowing what I'm going to do, because it gives me something to plan for and something to look forward to. And that helps keep me in balance when I'm stressed, because I know I've got this amazing stuff on the horizon that's going to balance everything out. Those are called nuggets, by the way. A weekend can be a nugget, a vacation can be a nugget, going to see a movie you've been looking forward to, that's a nugget. Anything that you have to look forward to, that is something that might help you get through kind of the rough times. And one thing to say about boredom too, that doesn't mean that you can't relax. Like I said earlier, some people need more time to regroup than others. But when I work with people and they tell me that they're going to have no plans on Saturday, they don't want anything, no plans on Saturday whatsoever, that's when people get into trouble. Plan on relaxing in the morning. Give yourself a chunk of time to relax. Give yourself time if you want to take a nap, but try to put some structure in there. Otherwise, you're going to fall into the boredom trap, and that's not good. The third dark realm or dysfunctional slice is codependency. And codependency is when one person becomes your slice. Now, you can have one person in your slice. So if you live at home with your partner or a child and they're the only person in your slice, that's okay. If your job is a home healthcare worker and you have one person that you work with, that person is in your slice. But if you treat the person as an entire slice, where everything you do within that slice is for that person, and you lose yourself in that process, then that's the codependent slice. So those are the three slices I really recommend that people kind of stay away from. And if you find yourself falling into one of those areas, to reach out to other people and to try to regroup and maybe add some other slices. My circles with my friends, because I've gone over this with my friends and my family, everybody kind of knows the same language with this. Every now and then we'll say, I kind of need to create a new slice. Some of my slices are getting kind of stale, or I'm outgrowing some of my slices, or some of the people in my slices have moved on and I don't see them very much. So what do I need to do to kind of keep myself in balance? So we reinvent ourselves. When I turned 40, I wanted to create a new slice, and I was looking on Craigslist and I saw that there was a writers group, and I'd never been a part of a writers group. And I thought this would be really something cool to do. And it was up in LA. So it's like, ooh, there's Hollywood types up there in this writers group. And I got all excited. And, it was something that only lasted for about 3 or 4 months, but it really did put some new balance in my life and energized me in a different way. And then I think when that slice kind of faded, I got more into the kayaking and building my sense of kayaking community with that. So I think it's really important to add new slices in time, and also realize that sometimes our slices just don't work for us anymore, and we need to let them go and do something new. One last thing I want to say before closing is I have a slice that I call my friends and family slice, because I have friends in my life that are people that were a part of other slices that aren't in my life anymore, whether it be from previous jobs. I changed jobs. That one job with all those people in there, that slice goes away. High school, that slice goes away. But sometimes I still keep people from each of those slices, and they go into that catch-all slice. And if I have a party, I invite them all. And a lot of my friends from all these different areas of my life all know each other because of the parties and the things that I've created. And I think that's really important to know, that as an adult child, we can become actors and not reactors. We can create the life that we want to have. And a lot of people, when they draw their little pies on a piece of paper, they realize their pies might be very empty. But then that gives you the direction to create how you want your life to be. What are the things that you've always wanted to do? What are the things that interest you that maybe you haven't had enough courage or confidence in yourself to undertake? For me, one of the things that I always wanted to do was, we have islands off the coast of California, and it's a national park, and I always wanted to go out there. But to me, it just seemed like that's something that you have to be a naturalist or do something, special to get over there. I didn't realize you just pick up the phone or go online, you book your ticket over there, and boom, you go. And somebody invited me to go one time. They did all that legwork. And when I realized how simple it was, it's something I do now 2-3 times a year. Okay, I created a slice with that. That's usually my kayaking group that goes over there, and we do that. Even though, like I said, started out by saying my life is a little stressed right now, a little disheveled, it's completely manageable because I work really, really, really hard on maintaining that. And I think the the steps relate with this on some level. And I really think that looking at your laundry list traits and making sure that you're working on balancing yourself in the areas of your life and trying to remove the things that are toxic and balance the things that maybe you can't change that are toxic with things that are really awesome and great, to be able to help reduce those laundry list triggers. So that's all I got with that. The topic that I would like to throw out to everybody would be to think about, what action do you need to put into your recovery so that you can have that healthy life balance? Do you need to change a realm? Do you need to add a new realm? Do you have something that you already do, but maybe you just need to do more of? Do you need to find other people to do this stuff with? Once again, the topic is just, what action do you need to take to put healthy life balance in? Anyway, once again, I'm Ken, and thank you for letting me be of service.
Welcome to the Adult Children Voices Across America Speakers Meeting Podcast. You may attend this meeting live on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time using the Zoom ID 848-520-80640, password 061120. For more information about adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families, visit adultchildren.org.